So today is Monday and I started a new week. Not really that much to talk about, but I did get into the wood shop today, as you saw, with my big fat gear. And I built them up out of plywood using the same techniques with a longer drill bit and a bandsaw blade. I felt like perhaps it could have been a bit taller, and as far as a blank for my mold, in terms of making the 4 gears, this wouldn't really suffice. Needless to say that it was going to be I think a laser cut plastic would have to do the job, so I think it's going to be a lot more expensive for this project to be realized, but hopefully I'll be able to have enough time to finish it. Work really hard this week and see what I can come up with. I'm thinking that more and more the gears are becoming a little less complicated as I go along. Anyhow, also I was able to pick up a fairly small amount of objects. Just a couple of things passed my eye and my fancy as I walked by. It was a day where I didn't do too much walking, but and I find it harder to find things at night, but I do anyways. And seemingly I was using different pathways as I walked along Queen to school instead, knowing I had to go to the bank. So it wasn't that there was a lack of items, it was that I maybe wasn't so observant today. But I'll let you see what I found. This one was hiding actually, and I just spotted it in the corner of my eye, so I thought that was pretty cool. The next 3 are pretty generic, but seemingly the extent of my day was just pretty generic and boring. Except for a nice end of the night, of course. This one's the top of a bottle. I thought it would be more interesting of an item, but it ended up just being top of one of those plastic bottles, so who knows, maybe the intricacy that I've been finding in the items is dwindling as I go over the same pathways over and over, and maybe that's just to do with timing or whatnot, but I think as far as the animation goes, I'm having a lot of trouble with the kind of final stage where I upload the video, and because I went to the school computers and it took me like an hour and a half to almost half finish a video, and as the uploading of the images was getting really ridiculously like time consuming, and then it just wouldn't upload after a certain amount of time, and I was just having a really annoying go at it. So I think in the future I'll use the more memory laden computers, or the ones that are just better, so that I can have kind of a better or faster upload and faster kind of working. Anyhow, it was a decent day. I got somewhat through things. I don't know. With the gear, I feel like I was just trying to pass some time and accomplish something and size it again. I felt like this time it was too small, so it's interesting how after seeing all the things and kind of going through them as they appear in my brain, and then going through them as they appear in reality, is quite different. So I'm really glad I prototyped the crane, and I'm really glad that I did this gear, because now I know maybe an extra inch or 2 added on top of that would be better and more fitting to towards what I want to do. So all in all, a decent day. Not too good, not too bad. Tuesday. well, Wednesday now, I guess. What am I doing still up? Why do I do this to myself? Anyhow, today was a fairly workful day. I was at school since 8:30 and was working all day, trying really hard to get that dang stop motion to work, to send it to you, but it took me, I don't know, since class ended at 2, it took me 3 hours just to get it done. It was so annoying. Anyhow, after that, I worked in the wood shop and rebuilt the prototype for my crane creature. I built it smaller, so I bandsawed off the top section and built it as if it was now the bottom section, and the bottom section that I had originally made became the top, so I just referenced it from that. I also got some veneer and cut out 2.5-inch strips that were now going to be the supporting columns. So I have 8 of those, and I'm gonna figure out just the sizing for it and prototype all of that, so I can hopefully get a whole mass of gears that all work inside of there, hopefully running some tubed in pipes in there. But I think that was pretty good to get done for the day, considering how long it took me to do that dang stop motion. I was pretty happy with that. One thing I wasn't happy with was the fact that I wasn't picking up any objects, but to my luck and surprise, I found my first object at school. This is the first one I've ever found inside school, actually. And lo and behold, it was a very fitting one, considering I'm working with gears. I thought a bicycle chain was pretty interesting to find, so that was pretty cool. The next one I found was also in school. 2 schools inside objects, which never happens. I wasn't having much luck, I guess, because of the fact that, like I say, that walkway between school and my house is constantly being scavenged by yours truly, but I was able to walk on the other side of the street and therefore find 2 more items with luck. And in the crossway between Dundas and my house, I luckily stumbled upon this, which I thought initially had some kind of pump action to it, or was maybe an arrow, like a dart or something, but I don't know, I can't figure out what the hell it is. I think it's pretty interesting how now I'm having to really scrape the barrel for these items, so every pickup is becoming more and more significant to me because of the fact that I'm actually, having to, I don't know, go, it's not like I'm going out of my way for it, but it's just that every item is more memorable now, and I know seemingly have more of a memory of where it's coming from, and so I think that's a good thing, but also it's a bad thing for the amount of accumulation of objects that I find. Maybe this is a sign that I'm getting too much, so we'll see. Yeah. Okie dokie, it is now Wednesday, and it was a day that seemingly got off on a wrong foot, as I was not really able to get to my class on time, so that kind of sucked. But therefore the objects seemed to suffer in some sort of a way. They weren't really living up to their potential as I wanted them to. But I went to Jack's and found these 2 guys. Of course I dropped the other one. This one reminded me of a Kinder Egg, but it's purple, so I wonder what that's about. It seems as though my interest is somewhat waning in these, but at the same time, because it's such a far-reaching area, it almost comes back to me, and in unexpected ways. Anyway, so I'll continue throughout the day. We'll talk more about this phenomenon, as Jack gave me an inhaler that he uses, and I thought that was pretty interesting because, I don't know, it's almost like it was calling for this to happen, and I imagined this little canister here, if you can see that space of blank here, it releases the pill. You can see it kind of crunching in, and so for the rest of the day it seemed like as I was going out in the streets and walking around, it was my objective to find a little object that would fit inside there. I don't know if I've found anything yet, but I think that is quite a new development, that there can be things that I can do and have and find and be given, and they can lead to me searching for other things, and that is quite interesting in itself, that not only is this object hunt and discovery becoming more of a refined and finite process, I'm also kind of adding on rules and specifications and predetermined kind of ways of looking at things, and you know, stipulations for a day or something, where it's like I'm getting, like I said, an eye to find small items, which I think is pretty interesting. I also found that it seems like in these rules that I've set up, there's always exceptions to the rules. So take, for example, today 2 rules were broken. I deemed that after the 2 lighters that I had picked up, I wouldn't pick up any more lighters, but I found this one, and originally I can only see it from this side, so it looked like to me that this was a spring and that this went down. And as soon as I picked it up, I realized, no, in fact, it's a lighter. And it has this kind of hilarious imagery on it. I can't really get a good kind of... Maybe this will be more clear once I photograph it, but there you go. I thought that was kind of interesting, and I immediately knew I couldn't throw it down again, and I did like it after all. And it fooled me. Once again, these objects, they're very mischievous, and once again my interest in them is renewed just by going through different pathways. I travel on different sides of the street just to test out that, and I feel like the only reason why my interest would be ever waning is the fact that because I go along that same Dundas strip, I keep talking about it, it doesn't get replenished as often as another place where I could just walk on it and never having gone there before, and there is just this wealth of items. Another rule that I broke in walking home was that I don't pick up glass, but luckily for me, this glass isn't really protruding. I mean, some of it fell off when I picked it up, but again, this item I just had to go back and pick up again. As I walked past it, it caught my eye, I kept walking, and I got myself in the position where someone was behind me, so I couldn't really bend down and pick it up. So I kind of walked around them and turned back, and must have looked kind of strange doing so, but this weird makeup kit it turned out to be, and I liked it. The original shape of it had all this glass, and it was kind of facing like this towards the camera, or the camera being my eye. So that was pretty interesting. I'm finding these, I realize they're earbuds now, as I found a little skull. I don't know if you can see, if I can get it you can almost see that. It's just a little skull there, and that's the same skull that's on these earphones. So I realized that these are earbuds. So this is also a new progression in that by picking up various objects and learning, this vocabulary, I am also learning somewhat more of what these things actually are, and that to me is becoming more interesting in itself, that I can now develop a vocabulary that not just exists as a visual identification, but now can be put into use, into physical use. Anyway, so more onto the objects that I picked up. I thought it might be another day of relative, lack. I mean, it seems as though this week has been one of not so many objects comparatively to the other weeks, so I'm getting a bit worried that that my interest is waning, or that my paths are overused, or just whatever is happening is causing this to kind of dwindle. But upon coming home and my dad getting home, we have this junk drawer in the kitchen, and he built this kind of sectional pieces of wood that would section off the drawer, and therefore he had to dump all the contents of the drawer to put it in, and he decided to sort through all these items, and luckily I was able to be there when he was doing so, and these objects came out. I realized that, I guess my third exception to the rules that I have made for myself is that now these objects don't necessarily have to be found by me, but they can find me, and they don't necessarily have to be found in the street, but they can be found anywhere, at any time, any place. And this was more present in how I found stuff at school this week, and how this drawer opened up new things in my house that I had never even seen before. So I guess I'll go through, I picked up a whole bunch of items, so I'll go through all of them kind of quickly. These two bike things are kind of weird. So I'm much more excited about this enterprise now that I like this one a lot. It has all these different spinny bits that I can use for the animation. It has like stuff that comes out and in. I think that's pretty exciting. So anyways, I think my interest has gone back to the full 100% interest that I've had. And once I, at the start of the week, may have lost my interest, these objects themselves have almost cried to me for their attention once again. And I think that's really profound and really motivating, that it's not just me in this process. And this is what I'm finding out with the animations as well, having talked with Jack a lot, and how he tells me about how much character these things have. I'm realizing that, in some sort of way, it's not just me that is putting forth and finding these things. It's these things that are becoming and that are living and have their own voice in their own life, and they're finding me. I think that's a really important thing to say and to stress, is that they are finding me. They are really becoming their own language. And I think, I also have talked about this with Jack, about how his paintings, they are seemingly done when they escape from him, when they almost decide it themselves, when they go beyond what he puts into them, so that they form a life of their own, and where he's almost not painting anymore with his brush, but he's painting by listening to what they want, and it's almost like the painting decides itself. And I think that's a very it's an important thing to mention when I think about how these objects can go, because I do agree with him that there is a life going on. These all have lives. They all have stories, and I talk about the basic utility of each item, and it even goes so far beyond that. So maybe I'm just realizing that now, and it's amazing how it just reinvigorates. It's this endless kind of cycle that reinvigorates itself, and there's no end to it, and it's just so expansive. I'll continue showing these things while I talk, because I feel like I'm getting to the point where I start to ramble, and you probably are in a less listening state of mind, as I would be too, I'm sure. The only trouble I'm finding is when I get into these generic items, because there has been such a voice of them for their utilitarian usage that they become that life and that story. So maybe that is something I can talk about and ever more use it. Like, these can only really be toothpick knives. There's nothing else for that, like toothpick swords. I mean, they could be something else if you manipulated them in such a way, but I think the nature of how I animate them is that they are what they are on screen, and as they move, they come to life as what they are. And I think, like I said in earlier weeks, and maybe in the second week, how I was disappointed that I was putting too much into these items. I think now I'm really learning to listen to what these items want and what they are going to do. So maybe something like this can be used not so much as a singular item, but tagged on to items such as this. Who knows? Sword and shield? I don't know. So I think it was really good today with the objects once again, because, as I say, everything seemed to fall into place, and I really love it when that happens. I am just living, and I'm just breathing, and whether unconscious or not, these things seem to just flow into me. And this is really sort of, I like this one a lot. It's so cute. So fragile too. I was afraid of breaking it. Its wings are almost snappable. So bendable. Anyhow, I also really like this one. We're trying to determine if it was metal or not. It has a really, really delicate, interesting color scheme. Can't really show it here. It has like a brownish copper tinge with a lot of dotting and almost like marble. It's quite beautiful. So yeah, I think that is really important, that this discovery is ongoing, and ever more it becomes me. Ever more I become them. I am just listening, and they are talking. I also forgot to mention yesterday when I was beginning my drawings, I attempted to film, as you had told me to try, to do a time lapse of my drawings. It's pretty grainy, it's pretty crappy quality, but I thought it's an interesting way to take it. It's kind of hard to film it from any specific angle that shows what is actually being drawn. insofar as when I have it right on the page, it's almost too at an oblique angle to capture what is really being drawn. You can get a kind of idea of it, but because the perspective is so off, you only really see the pen on the paper and the ink growing. So essentially, I think that is all in itself an interesting thing, that this growth that I call disease can be taken out of context, out of subject, and be just put on this kind of oblique thing. I will work on it more and see, you know, outside of a class setting, how I can film it, because I don't really I need to get a tripod. I'm realizing more than ever, but in the absence of that, I have to find out a way to photograph or film it that maybe I can capture all of it that's going on, that the drawing is not only the ink growing, but it's the kind of evolution of the drawing itself. So maybe I can suspend a camera above me as I draw, something like that. Anyhow, I think it's worth mentioning because it is something new in the progression of my drawings. Also, the fact that I'm starting to draw little creatures, like I said, I was kind of interested in last week, and you know, that's always just been a part of it all, and kind of an exterior part of the disease. And I find it good that I'm kind of pursuing all paths that this can lead to, because that's really the motivation for this sketchbook, is to kind of proceed down all possible paths that I can with my own drawings in such a way that I improve myself, I expand myself, I open my horizons, and include all vocabularies of ways I can do. I mean, yeah, as far as how much I have evolved, it hasn't been very much. I mean, to be honest, I don't think that will ever really change too much. The disease is the disease, and I seem to be affected and afflicted by it as much as I am my own self. So, but, you know, it just becomes good to just put it down and just do something mindless and just have it there as a building block, as kind of a passing in time, a doing when I'm not doing. And I think that's just, it's a useful habit to keep going, and I really enjoy that I can, at the end of the day, kind of relax to do something and still find it relaxing and not have to think about anything or worry about anything and clear my head. I mean, I haven't been doing much of that lately, but the idea that it is there is a good thing. And you know, maybe I need to work harder at filling the page, but at the same time, if it's just a kind of therapeutic device, then I'm not so worried about that anymore. Anyhow, so in all of this, I will attempt to animate tonight as I find I have some free time, and I think it's good to use it. So, as I haven't really done too much today besides object hunting, I thought it's good to mention that I am ever ongoing in my animation attempts, and to start earlier in the week means less work later in the week, as I was finding it's getting really exhausting to do it all in like 1 or 2 nights, as I learned Sunday night. And I think, you know, maybe it's time to start thinking about sleeping, which I don't really get much of anymore, but I think that's a student's life, that's an artist's life. You have to work hard, and you have to keep working, and you can't stop. But, I don't know, as far as a human's life, maybe I should start thinking about my body. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. You probably don't need to hear any of that, so I look forward to talking about So today turned out to be kind of a lost day, as I woke up pretty late. I wasted most of the day. I had the day off with Jack, and in the end it proved that I needed a lot more sleep than I thought, because I guess it's been pretty hectic, and I haven't slept much. So, but luckily I was able to work last night on the stop motion and get a little bit of the images done. I think that was a good thing. Yeah, but today it was just like, woke up at 5 and went to my sister's opening, and that was about it. Still had time to find some objects. I think that's at least the one good thing about this, what I'm doing. I can always, on the most mundane level, grab stuff and they become something. So I don't feel like the entire day gets lost, but I still feel crappy that I wasn't able to get into school. Anyhow, I found this in my alleyway. I quite like it. It was separated. I found just 2 pieces of it, but put them together. I quite like them. I don't know what the heck it is. It's really quite a fun thing to have found. So that kickstarted today. But after that it was back onto those small defenseless items. Ones that were fairly simple by design and attracted my eye. This one is great because it's sparkly. I like that. Attracted my eye the most. So yeah, not much to say here. I wish I had a better day, but I think it's like I'm starting to realize I need my sleep, and it's starting to catch up to me, so I'll just have to work harder and be more balanced, and we'll see how it goes. Friday, another day gone, another day passed. More time to think, more time to reacquaint myself with the ways of the work. I think tomorrow will be a good day, that I'll get into the studio, that I'll go to openings. But today seemed like a very in passing kind of day, a social kind of day, a day to improve my connections once again. Is not without the objects de curiosity. Anyhow, I found my first one along Dundas, and it seems as though now I am finding it a better place when there are people. When there are people, my mind goes right to the people, and I don't have to focus so very vehemently. And these things just come out of the woodwork. Luckily, on my way back, as I made several treks today, from school and back, and school and back. It was a kind of a computer usage day, as I was trying my best to apply for the retro show, and I did. So 3 of my pieces are now in the application form, and they will look over them, and they will decide if I am fit for this darned OCAD retro show, but we shall see. Anyways, moving on. Visiting a friend's house, Sabine's friend's house, I found these 2 things. I was a bit worried about taking them. I'm wondering if they were someone else's lock, but on hindsight, I felt like, you know, if they're just left there in the middle of the apartment, then up for grabs. I quite like this one. I think it's a good purple object. Purple seems to be the hardest color to find good objects in, and this one's very unique, very telling, very compelling, very obvious too at some point. I was also able to gather up this one, which seems to be a thread from another one previously done. I think it's really it's worthwhile having gone through these objects and the animations that they curtail or entrail and entail. That they have these threads, they have these pieces and stories that progress beyond the simple, you know, this was here at this moment, because this was there at this moment, but it broke up into a little million pieces, and so therefore that is there now, and this is over here, and that is there, and I'll find this then, and I'll find this now. I think that is a worthy act in itself. Once again, going back to the times where I'm with other people, it seems like the objects hit me more. They sink into me more. When I'm alone, it is more this pursuit that is too strong to gain anything. And I think that is interesting. It only happens when I'm in the right mindset, in this kind of in-between mindset where I am floating about my day walking, but I'm not so attached to these objects that they become the most important thing for me to do, but that they almost just come to me by the fact that I'm walking there and that I see them. So that is a really useful fact of life, and I have to realize that maybe I should walk with more people. That'll be more beneficial for these items. Anyways, last but not least, this wonderful, wonderful object. I was so very fascinated by it. I mean, it's so mundane, it's almost simple, but at the same time, I really quite liked it. And I've found several items in my alleyway now that are new. And I think the alleyway itself is becoming a very great facet of my life in terms of how useful it is. And may that change, may that, you know, go to the wayside depending on where I am and wherever what else is, but I don't think that will. I think that the objects are solid. They're the only solid thing I have, because, you know, going to work on this prototype today, it seemed like it was not the right space of mind to work. And it never got there, so I never worked on it. And that will be probably for tomorrow, and I think that is a good thing, because I think I realized that to rush it will mean to destroy it. To rush it will mean to kind of end all the work that I've been doing and push it into a realm that is non-working and non-moving, and I don't know how to explain it really better, but I just feel like with these objects teaching me the way of life, I'm realizing that it's better just to relax and let the day happen than to push something that I need to do into the point where it becomes badly done. And so if I can work on it better tomorrow, then I will. If I can't, then I won't. And I'll leave it at that. And I think that's really worth it. Worthwhile to think about. So finally Sunday has rolled around. I didn't do a journal yesterday because I didn't really do much. Besides going out to a gallery, I didn't really have the energy to go to school, or kind of, I don't know, I just needed to rest my leg. I just pulled my groin last couple of days, so I haven't been really doing too much. I've been just resting. But today was a lot different. Today was a working day. I actually, I got a call in to work for my dad on the TV show Copper, and it was kind of fun because my friend Byron and his brother also got to come out, and we went out to the film port where the TV show is located, the studio, and we laid down a plywood floor using Tapcon screws and hammer drills, and then screwing another kind of layer on top of that in plywood as well, and then we glued and pinned down some oak luan that were to look like oak flooring, and so that was what I did for the good portion of the day. Woke up ridiculously early, for that is how film works, and yeah, I got it done, and it was good to get back in there, because I think that's going to be my job for the summer. So I think it's relevant to talk about because it's definitely something that I'm doing, and it's something that is improving my skills and helping me to become a better carpenter, which is definitely a necessary skill if I want to proceed with my art making. Anyhow, I pretty much wrote off any chance of gathering up objects today, but amazingly enough, they still come through. Even when my focus is set 100% to be working because I'm getting paid for it and because I want to do a good job, even when my focus is there, I still have the time to pick up these objects. Now, it's funny because, I mean, there was only 3 today, but they're, as you can see, they're all dark. They're all black. And I wonder why that is. Maybe just because it was a dreary day, or maybe there's only black things that I could find, but pretty generic. This one I'm not so fond of, but I think it was more that I was finding them. I think it's kind of neat how these 2 objects echo each other. And this one's the papa and this one's the baby. And the baby's more refined. They're almost like wheels. So that was pretty cool, finding those things. Made me feel as though another day not focusing on my physical artworks maybe perhaps isn't a bad thing. I think I realize I'm taking it a lot slower than I maybe should have, but at the same time this allows for me to really think about it, and you know, I recognize the need to just do and do and do, but at the same time, if you're just doing and you have no direction, then it seems like it's a bad way to go. And you know, I seem to find the ability to do regardless of whether I'm making or, I don't know, I guess you can understand through the objects how I'm finding times to fill in all the times that I'm not doing or making or whatever, and I feel like I'm just allowing myself the opportunity to continue along a path where I am not necessarily healthy, but at least in a relative mindset where I mean, this week it was better because I did get some sleep on Thursday. I had the day off with Jack, and I pretty much slept the whole day. So in that regard, I think it's getting a bit better. But at the same time, when you sleep a whole day, you realize, that's another day gone, and days are becoming really precious by this end cram. So another thing I'd like to mention is that I noticed this on my desk, and I think it's like taken from my dad, but I really love how it could be an object and how it speaks to many of these creatures and could be just as easily something that I pick up. So I love that it's in two-dimensional form. I love that it's on this piece of paper because it leads me to believe that there could be placards for these things, that they can become kind of almost like these images in such that they are parts of something, in such that they are almost like, what's the word? Mechanical fasteners or drawings for a larger whole, almost pieces. And this reinforces that. This shows me a different direction that I can take it, and I find it, Jack has this way of working with the paint where he takes imagery and manipulates it, so mostly war imagery. I think I might have discussed this before, but with the imagery he goes on to start his first layer of paint, and he uses photos like this. Mostly it's war imagery, so it's obviously different than this, but it's the same kind of thing, and I think that is kind of interesting. I just find it weird how I connected the two things. Maybe it was just because this bag of stuff that I'm collecting is right beside where this thing is that I found, but I feel like just as much this image can become another found object. So that is definitely a new direction I never thought of. And it's exciting that I'm continually finding these new directions, so that's good. For later on tonight, I'm hoping to work on the animation, but I haven't really gotten too far this week. I'm not disappointed, it's just, I have been really pushing myself to do these animations, so I think that's just because it's kind of a grueling thing to do. So I'm kind of taking it a bit slower, and maybe if I don't finish this last week's objects this week, then I'm not too disappointed, but it's certainly a goal, just to do one every week. Hopefully I'll get one to you sometime this week, at least so it can be included in what I'm doing. I mean, I don't know if I should, I guess that would just count for next week's, but who knows? It's just, at this point, I'm not really worried about where it falls in the time frame. I'm just worried about where it's going, what it's doing, how far can I take it until it becomes dried up. But then again, the unique nature of every object that I'm finding makes it certain that somehow I always find a path for these animations to travel. And somehow I don't think I'm that worried about it ever drying up. I might have mentioned this before too, but I think the possibilities are always endless and always moving. So that's pretty cool. And the fact that it's gone from, me finding the objects to them finding me, the fact that it's going to paper, it's like, why else would I be talking about this every single day? To the point where you know, you said you chuckled at how serious I am, and, you know, meanwhile I'm thinking, yeah, I chuckled too. It's like, this is so ridiculous how obviously simple it is, and, you know, I'm just taking it to this point where it's kind of ridiculous, you know, what am I doing? But I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't feel it was worthwhile. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't feel it was fun. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't feel like I'm maturing as an artist from it. Developing my practice, developing my voice, my way of, you know, accentuating how I think and how I feel. Because, to be honest, I feel like I'm a very mundane kind of person. And a lot of times that gets me down, and that might seem to detract from my own kind of way of imagining where I will be. But maybe that's just a phase I have to transcend. Maybe that's just something I have to exploit and use as my purpose. If I am mundane, maybe go to the fullest of the mundane and kind of really stretch that out. I mean, that may get really tedious for others, but if I can be curious enough to follow that route, then so be it. Anyhow, I should get to this animation. Hopefully I'll have something to show you. But if not, so be it. It will come. It will be. So, as I said, I was going to work on the animation tonight, and before beginning, I thought about a different way to kind of approach. Well, I've been thinking about this for a little while, and thinking about how it would work, but basically the camera can see something, right, and it has a kind of area of focus, area of the lens that will pick up the light and see what's on screen. So I decided that it might be interesting to put a triangle that's just outside of the boundaries of where the camera can see, and then that way I'll be able to know exactly where my finger is right on that camera. So it's right at the if you can see from this angle, it's right in line with my direct first phalanx. When I pull it back, I'll know, okay, now I'm not in the shot. So I think that's really good. Plus I'll also be able to tell, well, I shouldn't use this item that's just currently being photographed, that this will show on screen. And I also thought about the top so that it will stay. As you can see here, this is on screen. That becomes off screen. On screen. Off screen. Oh, so finally, the end of the week and my final statements for the week. I felt like it was fairly lackadaisical in terms of getting to the shops and studios and working. I mean, I had a good start to the week, but ended up that, you know, I was just having to rest up and relax, and, you know, I really had pushed myself for the past few weeks, and now that I'm coming to the final stretch, it's kind of annoying because I didn't really save my energy for it. So I'm finding that it's becoming a lot harder to maintain that throughout the final closing parts of the semester. Anyhow, I was continuing with my drawing. It was a different approach this week. I went along the thread of last week at talking about the little dudes and the little guys, and decided that this week I would make a grid pattern and draw out every little creature within the page. Unfortunately, I didn't really get to the 2-page depth that I wanted, so I think for the first time I'm going to do 2 drawings in one drawing, if you get that. Basically condense the 2 weeks of drawing into one drawing for this drawing, and that way I'll be able to finish this thread of idea and be consistent. But for now, I liked that where it's going, and it's an interesting kind of break from what I normally draw, because I'm having to force myself to be unique in every single step that I am taking. So every little drawing has to be different, because then I won't have the difference of the people and the creatures that I want. Anyhow, on forward, and I took a picture of the objects that I was photographing for this week. I took a picture of all of them together before they went on screen, and I had arranged them to look like this creature. And this creature, I thought, was a very interesting, intricate direction that this perhaps can go to, because I'm already alluding to it in the animations when I do faces sometimes, and I thought this was really similar to the baboon painting that I had done. Now, it wasn't attached to anything, it was just kind of sitting there, but I really liked the look of it. I really liked where that kind of exploration was going. So I think I will continue to explore with this and see if I can reproduce this once the objects are all photographed on a flat piece. And this can maybe be the end result of all this, and perhaps this relates to the drawings as well. Oh, continuing on with the drawings, I also tried out doing a time lapse for when I drew, and this was a lot harder than I thought it would be. I wasn't able to focus on the page very well at all because of the angle that I was doing it at. It's almost like I have to have a camera that's attached to my head when doing it, as it becomes too of an oblique angle. But I will end you the video with my final kind of rendition of the time lapse. I've sped it up so it's not so long, but this is like at least maybe 10 minutes of filming, and you can see I didn't really get very far, so it's almost like the time-lapse idea seems to be stopped before it started because of the fact that I just don't have the capability to be able to do that with the camera memory and you know, the facility that I have working in class while drawing. So I think it's a good try, but perhaps I have to rethink that if I ever want to do it for real.